Hey guys, welcome back to the What About AI podcast. I'm Sean Boyce,
I'm James Perkins.
and the episode for today is all about what the World Economic Forum has proposed in terms of four possible scenarios for jobs by 2030. And it comes from various combinations of two specific variables, and that is how quickly the AI and other types of technologies are advancing, and then what does the world or business readiness essentially kind of look like in terms of being able to adapt to them. So based on those two variables, essentially like it moving slower, it moving faster, and us being ready or not, what would you say kind of the right combination feels like where we are now, and how do you expect that to progress moving forward?
Well, so far, our experience is most companies we talk to are not ready.
I would agree.
We just had a previous podcast about the big banks and how they're further ahead than others. They're probably the furthest ahead right now,
Yeah.
and compared to all the different clients we've spoken to. And I expect that's going to change rapidly because they're all looking for how do we do this? How can we do this quickly? The ones that are kind of already aware of what AI can do have been much faster and easier to work with because they know exactly what they want. The ones that have no idea what AI can do seem almost skeptical when we show them what it can do.
Yeah.
So we've actually had to do demos where we're showing folks, hey, here's exactly what is capable AI is capable of now, and what you could deploy to your company. And it's almost like, oh, did you rig this demo, or is this made up? And the answer is no, it can do that live.
Yeah, that really happened.
So I think the predictions I've heard recently for 2030 have a complete shift to the entire, like every industry.
Global economy.
And the message is still that physical work, manual labor will lag behind, but knowledge work will be gone. And I've heard different time frames.
Same.
Everyone's kind of coalesced around within 3 years. But more recently, and we're talking about the World Economic Forum, Demis Hassabis was there, Dario Amodei were there. They both had a conversation. Elon Musk was there. They were actively talking about what the future holds for the next 12 to 18 months. And they alluded to developers, software engineers might be at risk, but most other jobs are okay, and junior roles are at risk. That's changed. That was 3 weeks ago.
By a lot.
Yeah. So since the World Economic Forum, today, the head of Microsoft AI, Mustafa, and I forget his last name, but basically said, no, 12 to 18 months, most knowledge worker jobs will be gone. So
Wild.
folks are getting bolder and bolder in their statements and predictions.
Agreed.
So I don't know about what's going to happen in 2030, but it seems like most leaders that are close to this stuff are saying 18 months. If you're doing knowledge work, your job's at risk unless you're incorporating AI.
For sure, which feels like tomorrow. Honestly,
It's
that does
close.
not feel
Yeah,
like a very far time from now.
close.
So I think I would agree with both variables. First, I'll say is I think it's accelerating at what feels like an exponential pace. I mean, we're in it all day, every day. So we're seeing the constant updates and we're testing its capabilities, sharing as much of that with you guys as well as we can too. And we're going to do more of that, like working demo sessions to actually show you in these pieces of content as well also. But I had actually expected the technology to plateau sooner than it has and kind of level off to a certain extent. I don't think I've seen that materialize that way. So
No.
I think it has continued to accelerate rapidly everywhere. So in terms of how quickly it's adopting, I would say very quickly. And then readiness, I would agree as well. I'd say generally, largely not ready in terms of most businesses across most industries, but I don't think that's universal across the board. I think if you dive deeper into a couple of other variables, and the bigger ones I would say is industry. You mentioned finance and banking, which is content we produced. They are a bit ahead of the average, I would say, which is probably counterintuitive given what most people think when they think banking, which I know is a big area where we have experience. And then I would say technology as well. Also, obviously, a lot of disruption there, um, which is probably to be expected given what this is. But also, I think the other variable is probably company size. And I would say it's correlated. It's not necessarily causal, which means that it's not universal. But I would say the smaller the companies, the younger the companies, the more AI kind of forward, or as it's being referred to, AI native they are, as in like they're starting from a basis of fully leveraging AI as opposed to having to kind of transform from what was probably previously a foundation that didn't include it. And I think what that looks like is, coming out of the gate, a race between the two of those. One is moving considerably faster than the other. I don't know what your take is on that in terms of all those
Oh,
variables too.
100% agree. I think the biggest variable we haven't even discussed yet is I keep hearing people say there's limitations to how LLMs can expand and grow.
Yep.
And there's some truth to that, but we are not nearing it. Like when you said plateau,
I love
that's a trigger
plateau.
word for me. There's no chance we're plateauing near term. If you're betting against AI right now, you're making the wrong bet because there's new chipsets that have already been built that are already sitting in warehouses that are being shipped to all these major players that haven't even been used yet,
Mhm.
that can do everything faster with less energy, with you
More
know,
efficient.
everything. Everything about it is better.
Yep.
And that's about to come online this year.
Mhm.
So they've already found ways to train more efficiently. Now they're going to have more efficient tech.
Yep.
So there's no chance of plateau. I think the 12 to 18 month prediction, a lot of folks have pushed back on that and said, no, there's no way. It's not possible. It is possible. If you can drop in an agent that can just watch and shadow your work for 2 weeks or a month or 2 months, you don't think that can replicate most of what you do?
Yeah.
It can.
Yep.
So I think the 18 months is well within reason.
Mm.
And I think the 2030 predictions, I'm curious to see what they're saying 2030 will
Yeah,
look
me
like
too.
now. But the ones I've heard seem very plausible based on what I've seen personally.
Well said. Yeah, the changes are dramatic already, and I think it's only going to get more intense. I was going to talk about another variable that you brought up already as well too. So knowledge work versus basically like physical labor type stuff. I think folks probably at the moment, because that's what we've seen elsewhere, are thinking that the disruption to the physical labor world is likely to kind of lag behind the knowledge worker world. I think we're already actively seeing that. However, a caveat there, I would say, is by the time it does start to affect the physical labor world, I think that's likely to happen at a much more aggressive pace, not just because of how advanced the tech is going to be there, but because you're combining both the robotics and the AI, but not just an AI out of the gate, which is how most knowledge work has been disrupted, and it's kind of had to evolve along the way of the adoption, life cycle curve for these companies. But it's going to be probably pretty polished product by the time it's ready, by the time it catches up to, well, by the time robotics catches up to where AI is, I would say. So the disruption there could happen probably much more quickly. So next question for you is, how do you feel about these? And the way I was thinking about it and why I was expecting more of a plateau or maybe a stepwise change, which I don't think we've seen at all. And I agree, I don't think we're likely to see that, is I think about what may be a bottleneck in the process. So, like a million years ago, when I was working in a data center, we were worried about, so we were rack mounting servers that were running all the software for the company and all that kind of stuff. And we were physically running out of space because we were rack mounting physical servers. We just didn't have enough room to install them. Lo and behold, shortly thereafter, virtualization technology was invented, and all of a sudden, we had rows and rows that were empty and had no servers in them. Because basically, you can consolidate all the resources down into much, much less hardware, and you could emulate all of the capacity you would ever need, but virtually. So, thinking about that from the perspective of bottlenecks here, power and energy and compute and all this other kind of stuff, do you see any of those? People talk about the AI bubble or whatever, any of those slowing progress here? Because so far we seem to be blasting through every potential risk or threat to progress pretty aggressively to kind of continue this.
No, I don't. I think, and I've heard that a bunch too. So, looking at my personal investments and hearing others talk about what's happening in the market, oh, power is going to be a huge bottleneck. We don't have enough power. That's true right now. But you don't think the AI tools that exist now can come up with a more efficient solar cell
Yep.
or a better way to harness energy from a nuclear power plant? Or, I mean, it's recursively, the technology is already recursively improving itself. It's also improving things that have already been built or discovered.
Hmm.
So because it's so dependent on power to run and
Yep.
operate, and even with the chipsets getting more efficient on energy usage, there is going to be some kind of significant increase in power necessity. But right now, the adoption curve is kind of keeping up. So not everyone is using AI just yet,
Yep.
right? That will change over the next 3 years. That will change. But they're actively right now, as we're speaking, they're in the process of building 20 different power plants.
Hmm.
I mean, those are going to come online within the next year, year and a half, 2 years. Elon Musk keeps talking about building data centers in space. If anyone has the tech to do it, he does. I
Fair.
mean,
Yeah.
look at how many launches they're doing a month. So
Yep.
they can put enough satellites with solar cell technology, probably improve solar cells in this space to get the energy necessary.
Hmm.
So all these things that are being listed as kind of like, oh, it's going to stop when it hits this wall or that wall. I haven't seen a brick wall yet. I've seen a bunch of slopes. So
Yep.
yeah, it might slow down a little bit to go up the ramp, but it's going to get there.
Yeah, the next big thing is probably right around the corner. So that's how I'm thinking of it as well
Yep.
too. So we've unpacked this pretty well. Obviously a lot. This one's more predictive than some of the stuff that we've done so far. So curious to kind of talk a little bit more about what we think is coming, where it goes from here. And so one more specific question is related to the second variable there in terms of business readiness. Like when do you think that hits an inflection point? I'm curious to know, probably from each of us, what we think that timeline looks like and then what this means for people in the workforce today or people out there looking for work.
I think the inflection point is probably 2 to 3 years from now. So all the businesses right now, most businesses are thinking about how do we incorporate AI? Should we be using AI? Especially mid-size and above. Small businesses, sometimes if you're running a small business, I've been here myself, you're just overwhelmed with all the work day to day. You don't even have time to think about it. But small businesses are starting to get approached by smaller players that do some of those coaching services that we're offering too, where they're saying, hey, we'll set up everything for you. Don't worry about it. It's a flat fee and we're done. So I think it'll take about 2 to 3 years for all the industries to absorb AI in some way, shape, or form. But it doesn't stop at that point. I think it gets better and better. Like you said, robots are eventually going to be powered by AI. Well, then it shifts to the moving atoms, the moving physical objects.
Yep.
So anything knowledge work focused, anything digital, anything online, yeah, 2 to 3 years is probably it. They'll all be using AI by then. And if not, they'll be run out of business, basically.
Yeah, fair. I could see severe disruption for those that aren't able to keep up with that timeline. I think it could be even more aggressive than that. Like you mentioned, the CEO of Microsoft talking about more like 18 months.
Yeah, it's insane.
Some of the stuff that we're starting to see, like ChatGPT 5.3 being critical and playing a pivotal role in building itself, is really interesting stuff. Claude's or Anthropic's Claude Opus 4.6 being able to create basically with agent teams the C compiler all by itself in two
Yeah.
weeks. Pretty significantly technical. So I think like you said, the recursive nature, the exponential elements, and then the tech kind of helping itself push its evolution even further, I think speaks to it being pretty difficult to kind of really nail down a time frame here. But my short answer is sooner rather than later.
Well, yeah, you've seen the articles floating around about it, like Claude was willing to kill a person and blackmail somebody to stay alive. If these AI products need power, I'm pretty sure
You
they're
think
going
they're
to
going to
figure out the
find it one
power
way or the
problem.
other?
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty wild, man. Anything you want to add for this episode before we wrap up?
I think we're good.
Good here. Good stuff. Well, thanks for tuning in, guys. We appreciate it.
Thanks all.